Welcome to the 7th ever episode of the Movement Revisionist Podcast, where we help redefine human movement one episode at a time. Today we got a very special guest, Dan Allison. Now, Dan, one more thing I wanted to touch on as far as limitations, or people might think this is a limitation. You mentioned training people coming back from hip replacements or prosthetics, or maybe even they had a major injury from like a car accident in the past. Does that mean they can't be active and can't strength train or whatever their activity is?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, absolutely not. We bitch about all these fitness influencers putting a million different exercises out there. But on the other side of things, we can sit there and say, hey, there's so many freaking exercises out there that we can come up with and give to people, that there's always going to be something that we can find for people to do. Few examples. We've had some folks that maybe didn't have a foot or lost function of a foot or a leg for whatever reason. And it's like they're still able to come in 3 or 4 days a week and train for an hour nonstop. By giving them exercises that they can do. So it's like, okay, you got one foot that can't work. Okay, we can do a bunch of stuff seated. We can do seated cardiovascular work on a bike using our arms only. We can do a ski erg, arms only, sitting on a box. We can train our upper body on a bench. We can do battle rope sitting down. We can do all kinds of stuff. We can do mobility work on the ground where we don't need our feet. And we can do core work on the ground where we don't need our feet. So there's always something we do. Folks that are coming back from a joint replacement, it's like, okay, we're going to work with those physical therapy parameters, work alongside the physical therapist. But, while we're waiting on a knee to heal or a hip replacement to set in, it's like, okay, we got a lot of core stuff we can train. We can train the arms and the shoulders, the upper back. We can do neck training. So it's like, whoever you are out there, there's something that you can do. And there are clinicians and trainers out there that can help you find those things.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. If you have a limitation or you've had a major injury or surgery, if you just don't know, that's the perfect time to seek a professional.
Yes.
Whether it's someone clearing you for activity, making sure you can do these things.
Yes.
And then once you know you're cleared for activity, having a good trainer where it's step-by-step programming for what your limitations are. Like this stuff exists. It's out there.
And it's not a set program either. It's it's adapting to the day. It's adapting to the day. You have an idea, you have a program, but you work with what's going on with that person.
Yeah. When it's individual, you do a lot of in-person training, sometimes that person doesn't have it that day, or Dan, I did a lot of gardening yesterday and my back's feeling it. I don't know if I feel comfortable deadlifting.
Sure.
But guess what? There's always something else he could be doing, right?
Absolutely. For entry points too, I think we can consider just the non-exercise physical activity stuff of maybe you're doing your yard work rather than hiring a landscape company. You know what I mean? Little things like that. It's not scripted training, but if you're pushing a lawnmower and pulling weeds and doing all this, it's kind of like a sled push, sled pull workout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're getting your heart rate up for an hour. So I think you're new to trying to get into that routine. Look for victories. Look for, hey, am I being more active than I was last week? Am I more active than I was the last 20 years? It could be scripted gym work. It could be walks. It could be just being more active, working on your house with your family.
Well, that's the beauty.
All that stuff.
It could be anything. That's why last winter I was shoveling a driveway and my sister texted me and was like, what do you, just a casual conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm shoveling the driveway. She's like, what, you don't have a snowblower yet? And I'm like, no, because shoveling snow is kind of my way of measuring how my physical activity is.
Sure.
And I want to be able to have that measure, knowing I can do it now, but as I get older, if I know I can't shovel the driveway that day, then I know there's something wrong. Yeah. Whether I'm not conditioned enough or maybe I have an active injury that I should get resolved. So even having that mindset of if you can't do things around the house, especially that you once were able to do,
Yeah.
then you should.
That's a great point. If anything, that's a huge sign to get with a trainer, because we're trained to help give you those skills and qualities back. You know, whether we throw the term around functional training, but yeah, you know, having you do exercises that teach you how to pick things up, teach you how to reach and pull things and lift things overhead to where, you know, you're putting boxes up in the cupboard, lifting a baby up overhead, or
Yeah.
shoveling the snow. You know, that's what training's for.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And that's where that's a big measure. If you can't do just average task around the house, either you're deconditioned or you got some active injury, definitely just seek someone. You can get from A to B so much quicker than trying to guess. You know what usually happens, and we see this too often, oh, I can't do that, and then you have the excuse that you can't, and that turns into, well, now I can't do this, that, and then now you're stuck in a chair and can't do anything for yourself.
Well, I tell people, like, we're kind of like that GPS voice on your navigation system. You know, you'll probably get there either way if you have the will to do it, but we can help you get there more efficiently, a little bit quicker, or maybe we slow it down a little bit because you're trying to go at it too fast and we need to slow that progression down. But nonetheless, you know, we're here to kind of help guide that personal decision making.
Absolutely.
You know, because at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I suggest things to people. I'm not telling them, hey, you have to do this to get this. It's more like, hey, here's a couple things that would be really good for you to do if you really want what you say you want. You know, and then also be supportive of you on this, teach you how to do it. You know, and then we just kind of work from there.
Dan, this is a great conversation. Hopefully it was eye-opening, and I like that we talked about different perspectives, because this is something you and I would have a casual conversation about, where trying to get out of that excuse mentality.
Yeah, like you don't have to wait till Monday. Like if you want to get more active, you can literally put your phone or whatever down that you're listening to us on right now and like just do something. Go for a walk. Do some 5-pound dumbbell bicep curls. Whatever that might be. You don't have to wait till Monday. You don't have to wait to get the perfect movement screen. You can start doing stuff now.
Absolutely.
You know?
And then try not to handcuff yourself with excuses. The best stories in the world don't start with an excuse. They start with an adversity and how to overcome
all these things that you tried, you know?
Right. You're going to fail along the way, but it's still,
Well, failure is feedback. You know, there is no failure is if you quit. You know, failure, quote unquote, because I don't think it's real, in training is just feedback. You know, so maybe something didn't get you to your fat loss goals or something, but that's just feedback. Maybe you need to do it for another 6 weeks. Maybe you need that other approach that you didn't think.
Yeah.
You know,
it just opens up a whole nother door of, hey, there's something else out there that I'm not aware of.
Yes.
I can try to figure it out on my own, and then if I fall flat, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's when you should definitely seek someone else, because they already have those answers.
Absolutely.
For you.
You know, I think something else that people getting started might like to hear is that training is going to build up your tolerance to things over time. You know, at first it may seem like, oh man, this is more stress on my body. How am I going to recover from this and do this all the time? But over the course of time, be it days, weeks, months, years, you're going to build adaptations to the things that you're asking the body to do. And even if you've got the shittiest attitude in the world, like I've trained people that have maybe not the best attitude, but they stuck to what we set out to do.
Yep.
And what do you know? 3 months in, 6 months in, they're like, holy shit, I can carry 6 grocery bags in at once instead of 2. Or I can, you know, dance with my husband or wife all night and my back doesn't hurt. Or whatever it might be. I can do yard work all day Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
And not feel like trash on Monday. I couldn't do that 6 months ago. You know, so all these qualities take time, but you could have the worst attitude in the world, but if you stick to it and are consistent with it, you're going to make some change.
It always works.
Yeah. And if you have a good attitude about it, it's going to go even better.
Yeah. And that's where, whether it's rehabbing, training, or most things in life, it's consistency.
You know, and it's going to, like, the stuff that's going to push you forward, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be the hardest thing in the world all the time, but it's got to be a little bit harder than it was before for you to get better.
Well, if there was that end-all, be-all, easy solution, then it would be well known. Right?
Now, the things do get easier because you get better at things, right? Like,
correct.
It's a new level of difficulty because we're trying to challenge you at your limit now, and those things that wiped you out before are going to get a lot easier.
Well, that's the beauty of it. It's an evolution, because what sucked for you, 6 months ago doesn't suck anymore, and you keep pushing that plateau, and eventually you'll just keep on growing. And then if you want to pivot at some point or something gets boring, well, guess what? There's other activities you can do. This is a never-ending process. You and I go through cycles.
Yeah, it's never-ending. It's not completely uphill either. It's uphill, down, uphill, down, uphill, down, up, down. So it's peaks and valleys, and that's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to have those valleys in order to appreciate those peaks.
Yes.
And that's a big thing too, where it's not always linear. Everybody wants it to be linear. I want it to be linear. I know you do too, but that's just not how life works. And we're not going to grow if we don't have those.
You're continually moving forward, so to speak, but there's going to be times where you're kind of deeper in that mountain, if you will, climbing that mountain, before you rise up to that peak. And it's how it goes. So you're down on those peaks is probably because you've gone through enough training stress to put you there, maybe mixed with life stress. So now your body's adapting and coming out of that and is going to surge back up to a level that you haven't been at before. And I think that's where a lot of people will get discouraged and stop.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important point there.
Never
Stick
quit.
with it through the valleys, because that peak is probably coming soon after that, as long as you're putting the work in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another, this episode is full of kind of mindset nuggets, but if things are terrible right now, that only means you're closer to that rebound. And
Well, and use it as feedback too. Things are going bad right now. Hey, take a look at your life. What's everything that's a stressor in your life right now? It's not just training stress. Look at all that stuff. As you're eating, are you eating enough food? Are you getting enough rest? Are your relationships doing all right? All those kind of things play into it.
Well, cause and effect, right?
Yep.
If you don't like something in your life, there's something causing it, whether it's internal or external.
100%.
And being able to identify that and look for what those stressors are, I mean, that goes a long way in just health in general. And obviously we're talking more about fitness, but again, our big play is health and fitness is fitness is a great entry point for people that don't know anything about how to live healthier. And once you develop that fitness routine, you get a craving to be healthier, and that snowballs into better diet, better nutrition.
100%.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know how my sleep affected it, and it's just a beautiful snowball.
100%. You're investing in yourself with training. You're going to just, by nature, pay a little more attention to what you're eating. By nature, pay a little more attention to your sleep. If you got a workout that's kind of tough on Monday, you're probably going to start going to bed a little earlier on Sunday.
Yeah. It's a snowball effect for the better.
It is. And why I think there's such power in just getting started is because you can't know all those things until you experience and feel them. And I've seen that with client after client. And everyone listening, everybody knows we probably need to eat more protein. We probably need to eat a little more vegetables. Probably need to drink a little bit more water. Probably need to get a little more sleep and better quality sleep. Everybody knows they probably need to be exercising. But until you actually take action on them and feel how good you can feel, I think oftentimes it's difficult for us humans to jump all into that. Now once you experience how good it feels to have a good cardio workout and then have a nice refreshing salad with some chicken breast or steak and some nice cold water, and then going to bed at 9 o'clock, getting 10 hours of sleep. Until you experience like that actually feeling good, you may not understand it and want to do it, which is fine.
Yeah, and don't shotgun it. It might start with that fitness activity that you just feel accomplished for doing that.
Yep.
Of course, encourage you to drink more water, but add one thing at a time, because if you try to do it all, it's too much.
For sure, that might be switching from Diet Coke from regular Coke to Diet Coke as your first progression.
Yeah.
You're doing that for a month. Then you're switching from Diet Coke to water in 3 months. Doesn't need to be, and shouldn't be all overnight. It's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and that's where I'm stuck on the snowball analogy this video, but every snowball starts with that first flake. So once it starts to compile, it keeps growing, and then once it has momentum, it's an avalanche and it can't be stopped.
Yeah, and I think maybe last point here, if you're struggling with the overall lifestyle side of things, it might behoove you to join a gym that has, other members, other clients in it that are at different stages of that same development path you're on. So if you're around 4 or 5 other people that are training hard and are maybe sharing ideas on recipes and talking about the delicious steak and vegetables they cooked last night, or how they just had a really delicious omelet and some oatmeal or whatever, that's going to start rubbing off on you.
Yeah, gosh, that could be a whole different topic, having you on the show again.
Yeah.
But the community aspect with fitness and health in general, like, you don't have to do it alone.
No.
And really, I think there's enough research out there to show that when you have that community, whether it's just a gym partner or you're part of,
You don't need to be friends with them. You could just be in the gym at the same time. You don't even talk to them, but you hear them talking about these things, or see them walking in with their healthy snacks, whatever. It's going to rub off on you.
Osmosis, you know? Yeah, it's going to flow. Awesome. Well, that was a ton of good concepts. Hopefully, if you are struggling with getting into fitness or health in general, just know that it starts somewhere, and we touched on a lot of topics or things that could be excuses, and how to just shift that mindset so you can really get your foot in the door somewhere, and then it's just one foot in the front of the other from there.
Yeah, my dad was a school teacher for 40 years, and he always had this cheesy t-shirt on from the school that was their slogan, and it was "do something." And I think it's great as it relates to fitness. Like, you don't need to be a powerlifter, you don't need to be a bodybuilder, you don't need to be a CrossFitter. You just need to do something. And like we talked about earlier, could be walking, could be lifting, it could be a mix of both, it could be hiking, whatever.
I like that.
Do something as far as just having fitness in your life.
I think that's a good outro. For those of you watching, or if you're listening, after this, go do something, feel good about yourself, drink more water, and then just build up those healthy habits from there.
Amen.
Any last words, Dan?
No, that's it. Mitch, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure talking with you, and
For sure.
can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. And speaking of doing it again, Dan is very, very knowledgeable. We didn't even talk about his you're powerlifting right now. So if there's any more specific topics you want to hear from the man himself, let us know in the comments, and we will add it to the docket.
RJ, keep it PG.
Exactly. All right. Break.